Welcome to Gray Overload. I'm Anthony, and here we have it. Nvidia has released the Geforce RTX 40 series. So this is going to be their first installment. We finally get to see what the rumors have been about, see a little bit about the pricing, and start to make our decisions if we're going to go after used GPUs, get these new GPUs, or still wait it out. So here is the 40 series, and Nvidia, of course, is talking it up. It's beyond fast. There also is DLSS 3.0, and while it sounds very interesting, there looks to be like you can remove bottlenecks of your CPU and GPU. We'll hopefully touch on that here in a little bit. I do reserve some of my judgment on that until I see more and where Nvidia is going with that. But let's stick with the GPUs. They did say that you can have, they say up to 2x performance and power efficiency with the new streaming microprocessors, 4th gen Tensor cores, and 3rd gen RT cores, all 2x. Nvidia must really like that here. And then Nvidia did say cutting edge GPU. They say that this chip is 76 billion transistors and up to 18,000 cores on it. What's interesting enough, when we get into, just remember that number when we get into the RTX 4090, something seems a little weird, like we're missing the 4090 Ti, so or a better card. So this won't be the last card Nvidia releases in the top end of the stack, kind of following their previously releases. And you know, they kind of hit on some of the other stuff in here. Performance and reliability, I think part of that is going after a little bit of AMD, but a lot more Intel right now. Now, here's some numbers that they had for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and this is with 4K, highest game settings, DLSS super sampling mode on the 40 series with an i9 12900K, 32 gigs of RAM, Windows 11. So that's just to keep in mind here. Just read that if you want. So it does say that there's up to 4x, 2x, something like this on the 4090 versus the 3090 Ti. If we look at the 4080, they didn't show this in their event as I was paying attention to it, but you can kind of see here they're also trying to go after that 2x nomenclature here on the Revo performance. And against the 4080 Ti. Now you do have the 4080 16 gig and the 4080 12 gig. So they did pull some stuff with Portal here, which, okay, there's RTX on versus off. Just something you can see there. It almost seems like Nvidia is focusing more on older games than they are on newer games. There's not really any newer games that are getting anybody, hey, I want to go out and buy. I was talking to my friend. He plays a lot more games than I do. I wish I had more time to play games. But he was going through and he's like, there's just nothing out there that I want to go and play. So this is one of those things that it kind of makes sense for Nvidia to go after. Hey, this is a reason to go and buy our new cards. Here, you can play old games better. If I ever get one of these cards and be able to try it out, I definitely want to see how they react, how it actually looks in real life on the same screen, same card, RTX on, off, which one I prefer, DLSS on, off, all that stuff. So we'll go from there. But they did go through and say the DLSS 3 is powered by AI. They're really pushing that, and they want it to be able to kind of offload onto the Tensor cores, so you don't have CPU bottlenecks. Now, depending upon how this goes, you may even be able to reduce GPU bottlenecks as well. Some really interesting stuff here. I really, again, I want to see quality. You can only take it from their word only so much because you're not sitting there testing it and getting stuff through with that. So victories. Here we go, just more stuff from Nvidia. And here we go with the specs. So this is what we want to do, right? Want to see. I believe this is coming out in October. The 4080s are in November. And AMD happened to announce that RDNA 3 announcement is November 3rd. So, going to be very interesting to see. Both companies are kind of going down, hey, let's the GPU schedule everything. Let's not leave it up to the CPU, reduce that bottleneck. So, I do expect at some point AMD to come out with this, but they do have 1600 cores, not even close to 1600. That's 16,000 cores, 9700 cores, and 7600 cores, respectively, across the three different GPUs. This almost seems like it was like a set, 4070 Ti rather than a 4080. I'm guessing they're keeping that in that range to kind of push some of those other 3090s, especially 3080s, and push them through on the distribution side. Because when they kind of have all these prices, which this is, I believe, $899, 1100 or 1199, and this is 1599. So a little bit more expensive than last generation's 3090 to start, but a little bit of inflation. I don't know what the costs are, and I still think that's a little rich for me to pay. I'm looking at used ones right now instead, but your boost clock is about 2.5 gigahertz and then 2.61 on there. I'm sure that they will try to even push these even more. 24 gigs, 16 gigs, and 12 gigs. And I think if you compare specs here, you can kind of go down and see that they're different. It was kind of funny watching Jensen lift up this GPU. It seemed like that card is not a small card at all. It's got some heft to it. It'll be really interesting how big that Nvidia card is overall. They kind of have technologies here. Let's go back to the 4090. Let's see this. Here's the 4090. Do they do anything different here in the 4090? Full specs here. There we go. So let's see. I thought there was something else here. 384-bit bus. A whole bunch of features that they have. The MVEC encoder, HDMI, of course, DisplayPort. 450 watts. That's what I want to get to. 850 watt system. These are going to be the Gen 5 PCI cables that you'll need. So some power supply companies will supply them, others will not. But overall, this is a pretty beastly of a card, it seems like here. Let's go back and let's just see the 4080 here before we look at DLSS. So $899 for the 12 gig. So $900 or $1,200 here, and this is in the United States, coming in November. I'm sure with some of the differences in currency right now, it's going to be iffy the way it's going to go down in each country. So pay attention to that. 256-bit bus and a 192-bit bus there. 320 and 285 watts. So these are probably a little bit more reasonable power overall. You still need a 750 and a 700 watt supply. I think you're going to have some of that there as some transient power spikes that you have to cover. These also include the Gen 5 PCI cable, or need that 12 pin on there. So these are, I mean, it's pretty interesting. HDMI 2.1A and DisplayPort 1.4A is what these cards will have. So that is it. While we're going to DLSS 3 here, my opinion on these are they are not as expensive as I expected. I expected their high-end card to be $2,000 at this launch. Now, maybe they put their high-end card, the 4090 Ti or the 40 or the RTX Titan, at that 2100, 2500 range later on when they go to the full 18,000 cores. In theory, you could see them slotting another GPU maybe at 17,500 cores, and then 17,500 cores, and then do a Titan if it can beat AMD's RDNA 3 card at the full fat die. And so Nvidia could maybe even hit, let's say, $1,900, $1,899, or $2,000, and then you could get $2,500 or $2,500 to $2,700 there on that side as well. Now, I'm still reeling with, okay, how much do I spend on the graphics card, right? Uh, I spent $500 on a graphics card once, and I thought that was expensive. Now we have $1,500 graphics cards. I think you've heard this from me a couple times now, and I'm still in that mode. But the performance, DLSS here, this is the interesting part, right? DLSS off, RT on, DLSS 3 with RT on, you're getting a good bump in Cyberpunk. Some of these you get a good bump with DLSS on. It's going to be interesting to see how this actually is. I'll probably try to read some white papers. I know, sorry about all the dinging here. We got a lot of emails coming in, but it's going to be interesting how many games maybe implement this. Is this a non-game implementation thing too that you can take advantage of? And how well Nvidia does this to really be able to compete. Also, it's going to be something that AMD is going to have to hook onto and really compete with here. We'll see how that goes. There's some proprietary stuff that always concerns you with Nvidia. It seems like here now Nvidia could really open this up and really take it to everything else, and AMD could use it. And one thing I constantly put in the back of my mind is, where is Intel Arc in all this conversation? You can kind of see Nvidia kind of push this in a window here, really making the Arc stuff, especially once they come out with their, if they ever fully release their Arc 700 series here, A700 X GPUs, put them in a predicament where it's going to be hard for them to compete. Now, the full stack Nvidia kind of talked about in their presentation was the 360 on up to 380, and then did the 480 and the 490. So you can kind of see Nvidia's keeping around that 380 to 360 for the lower end at this time. And some of that is probably to try to get through on those items. So let me know what questions you have or anything else, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of quick summary of my thoughts of what I think about this. I am interesting to see where this all leads to. I think in the end, as long as it's producing good images and everything else, this is going to produce some really interesting stuff for us gamers eventually. It really depends upon how many people want to go out and spend that money at this point to get those GPUs, especially going recessions around the world and money being tight in a lot of different areas. So let me know what your thoughts are. I'd like to know if you're getting a GPU, and then if you do get it, come back and leave a comment on how do you like it as well. So with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for taking the time to help support Gray Overload and helping this channel grow. I really appreciate it. You've all been just awesome here to support this channel. Until next time, God bless, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.